And that is how it's done. I'm proud to report that Ninjago is back, and it's really back. Gone are the days of She's With Us, and in other days of quality Ninjago content once again. Dragons Rising Season 1 is one of the strongest outings we've ever had from the franchise, and as the 16th total season we've had, firmly rocks to the top half of that. A complete creative overhaul was basically the only way to follow up from the disastrous conclusion of Crystallized, and that is exactly what we got. The merge parts 1 and 2 are an excellent statement of this. Only Lloyd from the original team makes an appearance and is only prominent in the second half of the story. In the first half, it's Aaron and Sora who takes center stage alongside Baby Ryu, and this is such a welcome spotlight shift. These two are our new ninja, a change to the status quo which I think myself and many others have wanted to happen a long time ago. As the focal characters of the whole series, they're just great. Sora has the dramatic, lore-heavy backstory, and Aaron is a realistic depiction of someone who'd always lived in a world with the ninja, who are effectively superheroes. Both of these characters work for different reasons, and the arc Sora undergoes among the 20 episodes is genuinely exciting and a rewarding one as well. By the end of The Power Within, you really feel like Sora's conclusion is well earned, and is ultimately very satisfying. Aaron is also great, adding a new, different spark of fun to the ninja team. I really hope we see more of him as a main character next season. One thing that works best is his lack of elemental powers. It's a simple message, but a welcome one since the rejection of that arc for Nia and Crystallized. Speaking of Nia, her, Kai, and Lloyd are a primary returning ninja, alongside Zane later on. All of them are great to watch here. And Nia has a really fun dynamic with Sora, and it's nice to see her back in action, even if I'll forever mourn the loss of the impact of Seabound's ending with her return. Lloyd is a real standout, back to the character that we all know and love instead of the confused mess that he was in Crystallized. Here, he's finally allowed to be a ninja master, and something which has been teased since Possession 8 years ago. Next year, we're apparently getting Lloyd in Sensei robes as a figure, and I hope he stays that way in the show and the sets. Finally, Lloyd has been allowed to grow, which I think is a really good move for him. Kai also returns, and as someone who routinely makes fun of his character, I'm not going to lie here, and I'm going to say he was one of my favourites. You actually feel like the last 15 seasons have had an effect on him, and it made him an older, more mature character, but he was still inherently Kai-like, which I really enjoyed. Zane also does a lot in part 2, which I really enjoyed, as he's often neglected as one of the ninja. I particularly enjoyed his dynamic with Frohiki, who's a great addition to the pantheon of Ninjago supporting characters. I just love this guy, he's so much fun. On the topic of Frohiki, Crossroads is an amazing new location, serves as a fitting substitute for Ninjago City. I love the concept of the merge, as it allowed there to be a clear distinction between this show and the one before it. Crossroads shows the best promise of the merge, with so many new, colourful characters wandering around, and hope to see it used more in the later seasons, which I'm sure it will be. Also, I want to quickly mention Jay and Cole. I love the small amount of Cole we get here, as he's always fun to watch. Him and Gio are a great duo. Jay is an interesting one, as I'm a huge Jay fan, and his 33 seconds of screen time was somewhat disappointing, but I know by the time of Season 2, it'll all be worth it. Trust the process. Hopefully. Imperium are the antagonistic faction, and I love the designs and aesthetics of these guys. They honestly look so cool and futuristic, and their figures are some of my favourite designs for antagonists in a very long time. Ninjago usually has good baddie designs, and they're just no exception to that rule. I always found them interesting enough a bad faction, with a very rudimentary yet effective take on fascism and the many dangers and evils which it poses. Empress Beatrix leads them, who I like as a villain enough, but she's a little similar to those who've come before, combining elements of Harumi and Kalmar. Not a bad villain by any means, but she's far from being in the pantheon of all-time greats. Lord Raz, however, could. While I think he's still from Chima, not Wildness, I'll make a video on that later. Either way, he has a deeply evil, threatening presence, and I'm so happy he's staying on and being used once again next season, and by the sounds of things, as the main villain. From the rumours we've heard, I wouldn't be surprised if he was that main antagonist, and I think that's a great idea, as I can't think of the last time we've had a side villain graduate into a main villain in their second appearance. An angle of the season that wasn't really working for me at first was Wildfire. Initially, she really annoyed me, getting on my nerves immensely as a lot of feral type characters do. However, as the season went on, and specifically in part 2, she kind of grew on me a lot, and her dynamic with Kai brought a lot out of both characters and the best out of both of them. Whilst I still wouldn't say I'm 100% on board with her, I'm currently more invested than I used to be, and I'm curious to see where she's heading in Season 2, and she's not detracting from the show like I say she would earlier. That's not to say there were things that didn't work for me in Dragons Rising. I think some of the animation needed a little bit of work, as it can be a little oversaturated at times. I also think the second quarter of the season is a little bit muddled, like episodes 7 through to 9. The constant running around Imperium feeling a little bit tiresome. This extends to the action scenes, which are better in part 2, granted. However, there are some that look visually bland and weirdly cheap in part 1. Maybe it's because they were getting used to the new software, but it wasn't for me. But yes, while they do exist, these flaws aren't enough for me to say that it was an experience ruined. It's still one of Ninjago's best seasons that it's ever had, and it's a very exciting promise of what's to come. 9 out of 10. Great stuff.